Hello and welcome to another episode of the Odyssey Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Mullally. This is an Ithaca Media podcast. Today's guest is a man by the name of Daniel Linden. Linden is the owner and operator of Transparency IT, which is a specialist in the IT recruitment space. We brought Daniel on because he's a bit of a staple in the IT industry here in Perth. And we want to sort of dive a bit into the industry knowledge that he has and the IT recruitment space. So, Daniel, I want to welcome you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's good to be here.
We were sort of chatting a bit before we started the episode, but we kind of made that connection of you actually had your own IT company, which was Linden Tech. I kind of want to ask you first where that came about and how you got into IT in the first place.
Yeah, okay. How far back do we go? Good question. So look, I think for me, I, like a lot of my candidates would say to me now when I interview them, saying, how did you get into IT? Yeah. They typically say to me, I started tinkering with computers when I was, 12 or 13 or whatever. And look, I was exactly the same. I was, that nerd at school that walked around with a floppy disk case, with his books and files and would trade games and stuff with, other of my techie nerd mates at school. And that kind of just blossomed into, Dad in the early 90s bringing home, boat anchor work, computers from work and me having to try and fix them up and, getting really involved with computers just because it was something that I kind of had a natural affinity for and really kind of enjoyed. So that was kind of one thing that was going on in my background all the time. But the other thing I think I remember from early in my childhood is always kind of having this kind of entrepreneurial type gene kind of thing. I played a lot of tennis when I was quite young and I thought to myself, I see these tennis players, even, ones that were my age that were getting sponsored and, getting free rackets and stuff because they were so good. And I was thinking, I wonder how I could get some, rackets cheaply or, good rackets cheaply or whatever. Maybe I could, buy them from wholesalers and resell them, start a little business that way and things like that. So it's kind of, the two things in my childhood were always sort of, I suppose right there, the IT side of it or the computer side of it.
You had the ingredients right there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then there's the kind of business side of it. And I distinctly remember one night, I had one of these old computers. Dad actually bought a kind of a decent computer, but I wanted to upgrade it, and I wanted to be faster and things like that. And I think it had something like, 4 meg of RAM, and I wanted to have 8 meg of RAM or something like that. This is going back a long way. And I distinctly remember thinking, I know what I'll do. I'll write a business proposal to my dad, to upgrade.
Really? How old are you?
I was probably like 12, 11, 12, something like that. Yeah. And I thought, because it's going to cost $50 and, I don't have that. And, but, what reason's got a good? Oh, well, it'll be faster to do my homework. So, I typed up this kind of one-page contract for Dad and had a signature spot for him. If you pay me $50, I can do it myself. We don't have to pay someone else to install it because I can install RAM myself. And, and sure enough, he signed it and upgraded the computer. And, and kind of, in some ways the rest is history, right? That was the bug for me to, I think, combine two passions, this kind of entrepreneurial thing and, and the IT thing. And so when it came to, deciding, the big question, I'm going through this with my kids at the moment, what are you going to do after school, and I'm looking at uni courses and, sort of year 10, I was thinking, maybe physiotherapy, something like that. And then, but come, the real crunch time, I actually did some work experience at a place that used to be not far from here, actually, in the Perth city. It was called the Hardware House Computer Shop. Okay. Right, and in Cloisters it used to be, and I did a week's work experience there, and found that I knew this computer stuff. I could sell computers and stuff from the shop floor, and I got a buzz out of doing the sale, and I was only there, work experience, and I thought, this is great. This is what I want to do. So I ended up, choosing to do commerce at uni after finishing year 12, and then so. Yeah, actually, did you want me to keep going with the story?
Yeah, please. Okay.
Because I suppose this is where it all leads to how Linden Tech started, right? Yeah. So that was the kind of first taste I had of any real work, right? selling, technology on a shop floor in the early 90s, right? As part of work experience. And it really, like I say, the thrill of the sale, that, and being known for, even as a year 10, being known for my technical knowledge was kind of a really big buzz for me.
To you, like,
That's it. So, and I've got obviously all the colleagues around me that have been doing it for ages, and kind of quite impressed. And I'm thinking, I enjoy this. So, at the end of year 12, I beat the pavement and I walked into a computer shop called Abacus, who had a branch in Osborne Park at the time. They've since gone, like all the computer shops, that existed back then have gone. And I said, can you give me a job? I'm finished school, I'm going to uni next year, but can you give me a holiday job kind of thing?
Yeah.
And this manager at the time sort of was this, honestly, kind of slimy used car salesman type sort of person, right? And you could almost see the twinkle in his eye, sort of think, oh, yeah, I think we could do that. We could give Daniel a job, I think, yeah. And so he said, yeah, you can start tomorrow, come in and, you can, we can show you the ropes and that kind of thing. And so I came in, the next day and started, worked a full day and, sold a few things, and people would bring in their computers, and, back then in the 90s, computers just broke down all the time, but because I had a bit of a, technical head already, I could help, fix them, whereas usually they'd have to send them to head office and take 4 weeks and, all that kind of stuff.
You became pretty valuable in the shop.
Right. So this manager who knew nothing technical was thinking, oh, this is great. I've got this little whiz kid, who can sell a bit, and we don't have to send the computers away to get fixed and all this kind of stuff. And it came the next day and he said, look, up until Christmas, we're going to have to work 7 days a week, it's really busy, etc. And I said, oh, okay. But he said, you can take another day off during the week, to make up for it or whatever. I said, yeah, okay. But, and how much am I getting paid? Oh, we'll work that out, It'll be,
I see what the slimy part
exactly. So I said to my dad, who's been in business, high big business all his life. Yeah. I said to him, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. He said, I'll just come in and have a bit of a chat to him, And so, when Dad was picking me up one day after work, he came in and he said, how's Daniel going? Oh, yeah, he's great. Yeah. So just wondering what is the conditions of his employment? How much is he getting paid and what are his hours and those kind of things? Oh, he's doing really well, and we can work that out as we go along.
That didn't quite work on your dad, I'm taking it.
My dad turned to me later. He said, I've never seen anything like it. He said, I had to check I had all my fingers on my hand after I shook his hand. It was one of those kind of moments where he just, even he was a bit flummoxed, I think. So, and so, anyway, it came to the end of the week. I still didn't know how much I was getting paid. I worked all day Saturday. My parents were at Rottnest and so I said to them, look, I already said I wasn't really, got other commitments on Sunday. I'm not working Sundays, but, my parents are at Rottnest. I want to spend, some of the weekend with them. So I'll go over there on Sunday. I'll take Monday off and I'll see you at 7:30 for the sales meeting on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
And get this call on Monday night. Daniel, don't bother coming in for the sales meeting. Turns out that you were not really ever employed properly. No one told HR about it, and so yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, we don't bother coming in, kind of thing. And that was my first job, right? So but
or not.
Yeah, exactly. And so in the end, I got this pay slip, and I got paid out for 3 weeks, and the princely sum of $6.50 an hour or something. But that was my first ever employment experience. And 1 week's work, 3 weeks pay, and never really actually probably ever properly being employed. So then after that, I'm like, well, what do I do now? There's still lots of summer holidays left. And my uni course isn't starting till March, which was commerce, and I thought, well, where to now? And so I went back to the Hardware House computer shop here in Perth, that gave me work experience previously. And they said, yeah, well, have you, come and do a few weeks holiday work here. We're busy, blah, blah, blah. So I worked for, 2 weeks for them, or 2 or 3 weeks for them, coming into February. And then said to them, can I work part-time during my uni course? Because I really, like this, and I want to pay my way through uni, but, I don't have a job, I can't do full-time. And they said, we don't have anything part-time. So I went to all their suppliers and I said to them, can I sell your computers on commission, right? So this is the 1990s, and the PC boom is huge in the 1990s. So we are talking, the classifieds in Saturdays West have like columns and columns and columns of all these, computer gear and stuff. And there's computer shops everywhere. Like, it really changed in the, early 2000s. But anyway, so I asked these wholesalers, and they said to me, well, look, don't sell them on commission. Just register a business name and mark them up for whatever you want. You can buy, as long as you've got a business name, you can buy them from us. We don't mind selling them to you, and you can mark them up for whatever you want. So, so I said, okay, that seems pretty easy. So I registered Linden Technologies, and I just started retailing to family and friends.
So that's where Linden.
That's where Linden Tech started. Yeah. So eventually I contracted it to Linden Tech, but Linden Technologies started just purely because I wanted to make some money while I was at uni, and no one would employ me, So I thought, I people come to me asking advice on, computers and stuff. So I'll just tell them, well, I can actually sell you one. And so, I started going around the wholesalers, working out who the suppliers were and, prices and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of just, grew organically from there. And by the time I left uni, I was starting to get into a little bit of small business. I went and got an office in West Perth with another tech company. Actually, my ex-boss from the Hardware House Computer Shop had went out on his own and started his own tech company. So we kind of shared resources in a little office in West Perth, and then I employed my first guy actually, who was one of my tech nerd friends at school. So it kind of just moved things along from there, and organically grew over the next sort of 14 years to the point where I had 9 or 10 people, and in 2009 sold it as a going concern at the price that my broker valued it at. So really happy with that.
That's a hell of a journey. That's a hell of a journey.
Yeah, so I'd only been employed for about, gainfully employed for about 3 weeks of my life. But
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And tell me, what was the motivation to go from what you had at Linden Tech to then come to recruitment, which is, now transparency?
Good question. So what the complex thing about running an IT business is, there's lots of moving parts, right? So you've got to have the right people, so staffing is really important, and also they've also got to be trained all the time, right? So the technology, advancements since the early 1990s to, even 2009 when I sold it to today, it's just so extreme in how much things change. So and when you're at a small IT company, you're on the cutting edge of that, right? Because you're selling to other small businesses, and they want the latest and greatest. Then they're not like a big enterprise that have this kind of philosophy of N-1, right? Like don't go the bleeding edge, because that could cause massive problems for many users, right?
Yeah.
But so every project you're doing is not necessarily the same. There's always a bespoke element to it. So there's a lot of risk on that. So you could do a refresh of a network of, say, 30 computers, right? And, that might be 2 or 3 servers on, 30 workstations or whatever. And, you might do that and hit a few bottlenecks and problems along the way. And, and your staff might have to be trained as well on different things along the way. And you might make, 5 or 10 grand out of that. There's not much margin on, computer gear during those times, or even now probably. And, like you say, if you quote, 60 hours or whatever, and it takes you 80, then, there's, you can easily get behind if you're not really on top of things. So there's a lot of risk, I think, around that. So, a project like that, you might make, 10 grand or whatever. What we found with Linden Tech was that, we're doing all those projects all the time. We're also doing the support. So we're getting, charging for all the support calls as they come through. And that's kind of your bread and butter. And that's good work to have all the time. But the risky stuff can be sort of more around the projects or whatever. And what we're finding, though, is we got into some bigger companies, and they just wanted some of our people for 3 weeks or 6 weeks while they're covering holiday leave or sick leave or things like that, right? And we found that we could send them out and, you know, they do their thing. We don't have to worry about them. We're not managing them. We're not controlling their environment, you know, all that kind of stuff. And we're making, you know, a margin on them while they're out there, you know, while we're doing nothing effectively, right? So that seemed like a really simple business model, right? You just got a person, you put them in a company and you're skimming off the hourly rate, right? And so I thought, well, that's what recruiters do, right? So so I thought, well, that sort of seems like less headache, right? A much simpler business model. So that's what got me thinking about the next business and Transparency IT. And I had a mate working with me at the time who was one of those contractors, and we kind of chatted about it and thought we could start Transparency together. And that's kind of where it started. So
yeah, and here we are, nearly like 15 years later, right?
Yeah, that's right. And a lot has changed. So one thing I found is that we were much better at perm recruitment than contracting recruitment.
Yeah, which is obviously what you were like, where sort of the initial idea
exactly
came from.
That's right. And we even thought, you know, another big boom at the time we sold was document management systems were becoming quite big, and we kind of thought, well, we could get trained up in one of these and maybe sell document management sort of solutions, right? And very two very different businesses, but we didn't really know sort of what direction we wanted to go. As it turns out, we kind of the recruitment side of things was much easier to get off the ground, and because I used to run Linden Tech, I knew all the other sort of IT businesses around the place, and so I'd call them up and say, hey, sold my tech company, but now I'm in IT recruitment. I know what MSPs need. Do you want me to do your recruitment for you, kind of thing? And so that's where we kind of got our real sort of foothold in the MSP market as far as recruitment goes. So
brilliant. And I'm always super fascinated with where the names come from, and Transparency IT. Because I understand like a big value for you is that transparency between the relationship you have with your clients, but then also candidates as well. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so look, I think recruiters get a really bad rap, right? And some of it's quite justified in terms of, you know, kind of sending blinded CVs to companies that might be, you know, advertising, you know, but they don't have a relationship. So, you know, they'll kind of just on spec send a CV hoping that, you know, it draws attention to them and things. And we wanted to sort of totally position ourselves away from that. So a big thing for me is being, you know, really open and transparent. And, you know, that's what I'm like as a person. And that's what I thought, you know, as a company value, that's really, really important. So the transparency, you know, works both for our clients and our candidates. So I don't think it's really possible to do recruitment well without a really good knowledge of the company that you're working for, you know, the role you're trying to fill, right? And most cases, we know exactly what it's like to do that role, because probably we've done it before, you know, or I know someone really well who has done it before, right? Because I've both employed IT people before, and I've been that techie, I've been that systems engineer, you know, or I've employed developers or whatever it is, you know. So I think that the knowledge and being really clear with the clients being really clear with me about, you know, what's this job like, really like, warts and all, you know, when you're in it. So we can be really clear with the candidate about, you know, what they will experience in this role, is so important to get them, you know, interested in a role and know that the fit's right. Okay. Because it's all about fit at the end of the day. You don't want someone just starting a role and, you know, leaving really soon afterwards, or, you know, regardless of any replacement guarantee period, it's just not a good look. Right. So you want a fit that's going to work long term. So being really transparent with the client being really transparent with us, and same with the candidates. Right. So our process is, about 95% of the candidates that I interview, I am recording the interview, you know, with their permission, obviously. But I'm recording that interview and I'm having a chat like we're chatting now. It's a conversational type chat, but it's designed to dig deep into, you know, what their real skills are and what they really want to achieve in their career, etc. And then we send that video with the unedited CV of the candidate to the client, right? So they've got all the candidate's details, they've got the full video interview that I did with them, and they can see it all, right? Totally transparent. And what that means is, for our clients, is that they save so much time in the recruitment process, because they don't have to ask the same questions I've asked. Some of my clients will say, I know this guy's the guy, Daniel. Like they're 60% sure when they see the video that's the guy.
person, yeah.
They just get him in to do a meet and greet, and they really just sell the role to him then, rather than the company, rather than having to do a real strong exactly all the questioning and everything again. And that just gives them really good sort of foundation to be able to recruit quite quickly, but also very thoroughly. And that's a key benefit for them for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. And the video interview element, that's something it's of a recent vintage, of course, and it's something I'm hearing to be a bit more common in the recruitment space, and not just specific to IT, but to other industries as well. Tell us a bit more about that, because I'm just super fascinated with how that's sort of coming about. And do you sort of see it as the future of recruitment?
Yeah, definitely. So I think so we were doing it pre-COVID even, right? So in fact, in my office, I had a not quite this setup, but I had I've got
sort of like a little bit of a
studio.
That's right.
I've got a big light like this one, and put my phone on a tripod and stuff, and I was doing that in-person interviews in my office long before COVID even, right? So so even in-person interviews we're recording and sending off as well. Now a lot of it's virtual, because everyone's a bit more comfortable with that with COVID, and it's easy to record in Teams and things like that. Look, I hope it becomes a big thing, because one of the problems with recruitment in the kind of traditional way a recruitment agency is run is that a client has a job on, right, and then they give it to 3 or 4 recruiters, right, and then they put their own ad on Seek or something as well, and suddenly you've got all these people looking for the same candidates at exactly the same time, and the recruiter only gets paid if they got the CV across to the client first.
Right.
And big payday if you get it across first, but you're competing against 3 other agencies plus the company's own Seek ad if you choose to do this kind of work, which is how it was mainly done for quite some time. It's called contingent recruitment. And the problem with that is that the thoroughness with the way we used to conduct our interviews just didn't lend itself to that kind of being successful in that kind of environment, right? Because I'm getting the CV or, reaching out to candidates and then phoning them, making sure they're kind of a fit on the phone, then getting them in for an interview and recording it, and other recruiters are just, grabbing a whole lot of CVs, quickly talking to them, if that, just to say, I want to send you this company at this rate. Is that all right? Yep, fine, cool. We've sent the CV already. I'm still organising the interview, right? So, and that's the problem with that kind of recruitment. It's kind of it becomes a bit of a race to the bottom, in the sense that the recruiter's not actually adding a whole lot of value to the process. All they're doing is just racing to get CVs first into the inbox, right?
Yeah.
And like I say, how can you determine good fit for the company if you don't upfront spend that time with the company to really understand who they are and what type of people work in their environment, and spend some time in their office. I've even done videos with the hiring managers in the office sometimes and things like that. You can't do that if the job's already gone out to 3 other recruiters, right? So we just won't typically compete in that kind of environment anymore. Our clients commit to us exclusively for a set period of time for a role, and that gives us the freedom to go out there and properly vet the candidates, properly find the ones that are the right fit, do the video interview, send it across to them, so that all they have to do is watch the video interview, do one interview themselves, and then offer them the role. So.
Yeah, right. And like you said, you must be saving like a load of time for them, because
lots of time for the hiring manager. Yeah, exactly. And there's very little to be gained by sending it out to multiple recruiters, because they all just trip over each other over the same candidates, and you're not actually expanding your candidate pool much at all. I think the much better way to do recruitment is to make sure you're getting the fit right, which means partnering with someone who takes the time to properly interview not just the client, not just the candidates, but the client as well, to make sure that they really understand the role.
Yeah, and is there also additional value in what you do, Daniel, in the sense that you're specialised in the IT industry? Is there like an additional value to that, because your pool is really hyper-focused on those particular skill set.
Definitely, yeah. Oh, and you can even niche down within the IT, industry as well.
Yeah.
I think IT recruitment is a very specialist sort of game. And again, if you don't understand, some of the fundamentals around IT and the IT industry and IT companies and versus IT departments and the differences in those kind of roles, it's really hard to know what you're recruiting for. Because a lot of the time it's not just the technical stuff, it's also, if I'm recruiting for an MSP, it's making sure they're going to be able to handle things like timesheeting and, billable hours, KPIs and all these kind of things, which in an IT department, you don't have to worry about at all. Can they handle multiple clients and multiple different sites? And, you may be supporting someone at a site that you've never seen before, at a client you don't even know what their infrastructure is like or whatever. Whereas if you're, in one company, then, the infrastructure is all around you, the people are all around you, you get to know one system, one set of software, one set of hardware, that kind of thing. It's it's a simpler equation in many ways. So that's what I mean. I think doing recruitment, without IT recruitment, when you're not specialized in that industry, I think would be pretty hard to do well.
Right. There's a couple of things that you said earlier that I really want to talk a bit more about, because I found it super interesting that you said how you've even done like a couple of video interviews for the companies to sort of, I guess, give them a chance to talk about.
Yeah, that's what you do, isn't it?
Well, that's it. And I kind of wanted to ask you, I guess, what's the importance of the company employer branding for the recruitment process? And I guess, and you kind of mentioned before, selling the company and what they are, and what their values are, and what they do to candidates. What kind of role does, I guess, like the storytelling?
It's critical. And I've got to say, probably generally IT people aren't great at storytelling, or even IT companies from that perspective. Most smaller IT companies started because, probably much like me, they're interested in IT and, they started out going out on their own, fixing computers, and it kind of grew from there, and they got busy, so they needed to put someone on, and et cetera, but they've never gone through a real kind of, proper marketing process and thinking, well, what are our differentiators, how do we communicate that, all that kind of thing. But as they've grown, they've kind of had to start growing up in that thinking. So, and I probably would say that the real difference, like if you look at the IT company market or MSP market in Perth, which looks after small, medium-sized businesses, right? There's about 80 odd companies, and there's probably only about 15 or 20 that are over 20 people, right? Even less, it used to be 10, it could be up to 15 now. And what that tells you is that, it's very hard to grow an IT company past about 10 or 15 people, because, if you're not thinking as a business owner, you're thinking more as a technician, which is where a lot of these, business owners started.
You're just going to stay at that kind
exactly.
of level.
You'll miss the marketing side of it, the storytelling side of it, like you say. You'll miss the policies and procedures, all of that stuff that's needed to kind of start scaling a business. The values that are really important to attract the right types of employees, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that all starts becoming really important once you kind of get past 10 people. So
exactly. And also you were mentioning around like a candidate fitting into a company, like, and how that kind of works. Do you see a value in the ability to, I guess, have and demonstrate that reputation of who you are as a company to make sure you are getting the right fit? Because I imagine there's like been, and you've sort of seen it in your career, where there isn't the right fit for people, and it's because like there's just this incongruency between who the company is and who the candidate is. Have you seen that?
Oh, definitely. And I think that's probably one of the roles of a really good recruiter, and also one of the harder things to do as a recruiter, is to take the time to get to know the company and the candidate in order to make sure that fits there. And particularly when it comes to kind of marketing a role, is that because we're not the company, we don't work in the company day in, day out. There's not that, that we have to sort of learn that, right? And we're not using the company's branding most of the time, and all that kind of stuff. So we have to work out a way that we can, adequately market that role, without necessarily having all the kind of benefits of a full employment branding, that a large company might have if they're doing it themselves, because we're a recruiter, obviously, external to that company.
Sure.
So,
but like, what are sort of the key things you're listening for then when you go through that process of, like you said, you sort of sit down with the company to get to know that information?
Yeah.
I guess what are sort of the key things you're looking for from a recruitment point of view?
Yeah, sure. So what we're talking about here is employer brand, right?
Yeah.
That's what really does the company stand for when it comes to employment related stuff, right? And a lot of it will be down to, like, we'll try and get right down to specifics, right? And because when you're really marketing a role, you can't just say, oh, there's good work-life balance, right? Well,
everyone says that.
Everyone says there's good work-life balance, right? And also, you look at Seek and what everyone wants, right? The Seek sort of, reports that they do regularly, always come back with the IT industry kind of wanting better work-life balance. Like, that's what the candidates want, right?
Okay.
But you can't just say, we want more work-life balance. What does that actually mean for your...
On the other side of it too, what for you,
What does work-life balance mean to you in this company? Does it mean that, when 5:30 rolls around, there's someone walking through the office saying, hey, it's time to go home? Is that the culture? And that's led from the front, where you don't have the manager or the owner still burning the light on at 9 o'clock and no one else feeling they can go home, right? Like, what does the work-life balance culture really mean? Because it's one thing to say it, and it's one thing to say you don't make people work late or work after hours or whatever, but the proof is, well, if a lot of people do it anyway.
Like,
that's right. Then the people feel they have to, right?
Yeah.
So, to me, I think, what we look for is things like, we keep drilling down. So, what does work-life balance really mean? Does it mean no after hours work, or no projects on weekends, or is it that there's projects, but it's cycled through. So you might have to work a Saturday in 1 in 6 or 1 in 8 or whatever, and you get paid extra for it, so you're not taken advantage of. And how much you're getting paid? This is much. IT companies are classics for needing to be on call for after-hours support, right? And again, that's fine, but if you're on call, you can't go out on a Friday night and have a little bit too much to drink, right? Because you're on call. So it impacts lifestyle for a lot of people, which means that they need to be paid just to be on call, right? And it might seem like a pretty obvious thing, but there's lots of smaller IT companies that that wasn't a thing for many, many years, right? So I think there is this, we kind of keep drilling down to kind of work out, well, okay, work-life balance, what does that actually mean? What is it like for people that actually work here in terms of when they go home, how many hours they do, is it time in lieu, is it, overtime, what's the overtime rate, all that kind of stuff. And also, same with, we do social things every quarter or whatever, what does that actually look like? What, is it go-karting? Is it, a cook-off at work, etc.? Or, or family, flexibility, all that kind of thing, work from home. So we really kind of dig down into a lot of that, because I think employers don't always appreciate, particularly when they're companies that, started by the owner, and maybe have a couple of, owners in the business or whatever. They don't kind of always realize that, that this business might be your baby, but,
not everyone is going to have that same investment.
Exactly,
in it.
That same investment and passion, and right? So you can't just kind of say one day, we're work from home, or work from anywhere kind of thing, and then say, oh no, we're changing that now, it's all work from the office. And they took the role because they lived 45 minutes away from the office, but it didn't matter when they could work from home 3 or 4 days a week. And now you're saying they can't. Well, now they've got to look for another job. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of stuff is really important to candidates, and it's being able to drill down to know, what the job really allows as far as that goes. So,
And as far as like the current state of the industry, Daniel, like, because there's and I've spoken to a lot of them, but there's a lot of people like yourself who, that from a young age, they've got that interest in tech, and they kind of very early in their life got into the industry. But do you find that these days there are a lot of people who are perhaps changing careers, or perhaps sort of a bit older in life coming into this industry?
Look, not as many as I would have thought.
Okay.
And
is that a problem, do you think, or not?
Look,
necessarily?
it could be a problem for them. There's obviously some real big changes afoot in the world at the moment, you know, with things like artificial intelligence and,
Yeah.
you know, and things like that. And that's probably AI, I think, is going to be the next big thing that is going to change a lot in terms of, you know, not just people's jobs, but, you know, people's lives, right? And I think that, there will need to be some retraining and, you know, and obviously IT is going to be a reasonable place to be, because you want to be in control of this AI rather than being, you know, made redundant by it, right?
That's right,
preferably. So, I think that there should be more of it. And I think the IT industry probably needs to grow up a little bit here as well, because what I've seen is we're not great at taking the, you know, 40, 50-year-old, you know, that was a boilermaker and wants to break into the IT industry and finding him a job on the help desk with all the 20-year-olds, right? I've got to be honest, we're not great at that. And I think there's a lot of perceptions around, you know, older people not being quick enough, not being enthusiastic enough, you know, compared to their kind of, you know, TAFE grad counterparts. You know, that have kind of just left school, gone to TAFE, and then walked into a support role. So, I think we should be better at that. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I want to sort of touch on a bit more about your journey as a business owner, because you've had only a job for 3 weeks, was it? So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like, because what I like to ask people when they come on, I guess, like, what would you say has been like your biggest biggest lesson or learning point for yourself over your career, Daniel, as a business owner?
Right. Yeah. Good one. Look, I think play to your strengths. Okay. So, because I'm in recruitment, we get access to all these personality tests and things like that, right? Like, you know, I don't know if you've done any of them, but, you know, there's classic Myers-Briggs and
Myers-Briggs I've done.
It's become the 16 personalities, I think, since then, and and there's a bunch of others as well. And consistently, I'm off the scale on the calmness factor, right? So
I wouldn't have picked you for it.
No. So there you go. So. It's funny, isn't it, that I think that you know, and you can look at that and you can say, well, that's a massive strength, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is. I think the only reason I've been in business this long is because, you know, it's always a roller coaster in business, right?
Yeah,
always is. The economy is always changing. People are always changing, you know. And now in recruitment, you know, you can think you've kicked it out of the park, you know, placing 3 or 4 people in a row or whatever, and then, you know, suddenly you're scrambling to, you know, find the next placement or, you know, the right candidate for the next role or whatever, and you know, and it can really be that roller coaster kind of ride, right? So I think without you know, the calmness to be able to, you know, work through those highs and lows, you know, I think certainly wouldn't have been, you know, around that long. I think at some point I would have probably bailed and said, it's time to get a real job. so yeah, I think play to your strengths would probably be a big thing, I would say, as far as that goes. Know yourself and play to those strengths, but also improve those weaknesses, right? So you know, knowing that I'm extra calm, you know, one of my weaknesses is I'm not extra competitive, right? So, you know, I'm not kind of that guy that's always thinking, oh, we did, you know, X $100,000, you know, last year. Let's push that up.
Probably the first recruiter I've met who's said
that. Exactly right. So, you know, exactly. Why am I in this business? Exactly right. So I'm not that guy that's kind of continually pushing the boundaries or wanting to be, you know, so much better than I was last year or better than the next guy or whatever, right? So I do have to, you know, sort of say, okay, well, that's a weakness. How do I overcome that? And so I do. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I like to, you know, I like to systemize a lot in my business and get other people involved where I'm not so good and things like that. So, yeah, it's kind of trying to work around that, and, you know, and when you do have the right energy and the right kind of competitive spirit, sort of really doubling down on it as well. Yeah. So
great. Yeah. Okay. And you were just touching on it. Sorry, you were just touching on it there. Because I usually like to ask people, especially, like, you know, it sounds like you're into personal development. Like, I guess are there any kind of resources or books or audiobooks for that matter that you'd recommend for people, like, to, I guess, assist in improving yourself? Yeah,
look, there's so many. Like I have an Audible account. You know, every month I'm buying Audible books. Yeah. But look, I think there's a couple of things I've learned to do. One is that whatever problem I'm dealing with in business at the moment, just concentrate on that rather than sort of,
try and do too many.
So I'll have one audiobook and I might do it on repeat, which is really rare for me because I don't rewatch any movies. I don't rewatch, anything typically. But, I'm kind of learning now to, particularly Audible when I'm driving around the car, I'm listening to it. It makes sense to listen to it a few times. So that's probably one thing. But the books that I've probably self-development books that I've probably read that have really made an impact and I keep coming back to and have changed a lot because again, like I don't often reread stuff. Would probably be 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I know is an absolute classic, right? And it was kind of probably the first self-help book in many ways, right? Stephen Covey, but it's brilliant, right? Like he really does nail some absolutely fundamental principles which will never change. And that's kind of why, I think it really has stood the test of time. So that's one, and particularly when it comes to recruitment, like I'm not often on this side of the desk. I'm usually the one asking questions, right? And one of the habits is kind of this active listening habit, right? Seek first to understand before trying to be understood, right? And that is such a powerful kind of mantra, right? Like if someone feels that you understand them, then, it doesn't matter if you don't agree with them. It doesn't matter if you, have a totally opposite point of view or whatever. If they actually believe that you understand them and they feel comforted by that, then you've got a meeting place to start, right? Rather than trying to, you always trying to be understood and get your point across all the time, you'll never meet, right? So being that, big enough and humble enough to kind of first try and really understand them, that opens the conversation. That allows you to sort of really go deep with someone. That's just kind of one of the classic kind of 7 habits. So there's that one. In terms of business, again, it's an absolute classic, but Michael E. Gerber's the E-Myth, right? An absolute classic. Again, I read that when I was probably 20 or something, but the whole idea of systemizing your business and, having, putting your own name in lots of different places and then gradually replacing it, in terms of growth. Brilliant. Look, so many, even in more recent time, but still probably now 12 years old or something, the 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss,
So an absolute classic as well. So those ones are probably the really ones that made the biggest impact on me as a sort of, young business person.
And you sort of keep revisiting these ones.
To a point, Or there's a number of books now that I'm reading that refer back to those ones, right? So, particularly the E-Myth, I've joined an entrepreneur organisation group now, and it's called EO or EOA, the Accelerator Group, and and like a lot of the books that they're recommending, like Traction, and there's another one for scaling up your business. They often reference these kind of books as well. So particularly the E-Myth, it's kind of the staple for that.
Fantastic. Listen, we are unfortunately coming to the end of the episode, Daniel. But if people want to sort of learn a bit more about yourself and Transparency IT, how can they find out that information?
Yeah, sure. So relatively active on LinkedIn. So looking up Daniel Linden on LinkedIn will get me, or our website, transparencyit.com.
Fantastic. And we'll have those links in the bio for this episode. So awesome. Daniel, really want to thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute banger of a chat. I really enjoyed hearing a bit more about your journey and just diving into your expertise as well. It's been really, really fruitful conversation. And awesome. Hopefully, because I feel like we've only scratched the surface, maybe we can get you on again
sure.
in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. That's awesome. Great.
Thanks,
Jeremy.